I know it took me a long time how to figure out how to shift without a clutch, but these tips will definitely help you out if you're learning. Alright, this is a GMC 7000 1988 big block 366. Alright, I've always wanted to make this video and I never have time to do it, but if you're learning how to split shift or have this 2-speed axle button, I've got to start somewhere. And you know what? I always say a parking lot. And first gear is a great place to start because you're not going to grind your gears too bad or get stuck in the middle of the road or, you know, trying to figure it out and not figure it out in the middle of the road and panic. So I'm in here in a parking lot and I'm just going to do a really easy demonstration on how I do it. I don't know how anybody else does it, but hopefully later on I'll be able to make some other videos about shifting without the clutch in it. We're going to do the 2-speed rear end and we're going to do it without using the clutch. And then I'll also explain how to drop it in and out of gear without using the clutch. So hopefully you'll learn a lot in this video. And in other videos I will do like a much better explanation on speed and on the highway on how to use all these gears. But if you're just starting out and you don't really know exactly what's going on, this video should help you a lot. So let's just start with when you press this red button, it changes a gear in the rear end. And so if you have power on the transmission, you're gassing it and it's pushing power to the transmission to the rear end, you're going to have like a bindage or a gear from your drive shaft pushing the power. So it's not going to shift while it has pressure on it. And it's also not going to shift or come out of gear when you're decompressing because it's also holding the gear. So the times that the shift is going to want to happen is in between gassing it and letting off, like a free point. So every time you let off, you'll feel like the transmission clunk. And you can even see it move. This one's kind of sloppy, so if I let off, you can see it. That's the down pressure from the drive shaft. And then when you gas it, you can see it kind of jumps, pushes it a little bit. So if I back off the gas a little bit, you can hear like right in between that stage of gassing it and letting off, there's in between. And that's when the gears are just kind of freewheeling. Really have a lot of pressure on or off. Now you've got to take into consideration the truck speeding up and slowing down. So if I just go and let off, it's going to be decreasing mile an hour for mile an hour, you know. So I'm going to have to judge where that free point is. Typically right when you let off, that's when you want to make the shift because it's backing out of having pressure. And if you're letting off on the gas and it has decompression, you're going to want to blip the gas up to release it. So let's just idle. So let's just start off with idling. We're idling in first granny gear and I want to shift the 2-speed axle. So what would happen? Let's shift it and listen to the engine. Nothing happened yet because it's loaded, but as soon as I touch the gas and let off, it'll hold pressure because it's pushing, but when I let off, that momentary let off will allow the rear end to shift. It just did it by itself. It had enough of a free spot in between idling and shifted, so now we're in second. We're in that range. Now let's click it back down to first, or the low range, and see what would happen. Nothing yet. Still has a load on it from second, so I would need to break that load by accelerating, gassing up a little bit, and then it would downshift. So as soon as I made that break, it allowed it to jump into gear. You saw that. So now we're in granny low again. So that's a prime example of why the gear won't shift when the axle's loaded. So basically you're just going to rev the engine up and push through your gear, and at the free point you're always going to make the shift and then let off and let it engage and then put the power down and so on, gear for gear. As you're downshifting, the RPMs always need to be higher because you're going into a lower gear. So if I'm in second gear, which we'll put this in right now. Now it's in second. If I wanted to be in first right now, obviously the RPMs would be a lot higher. So what would I need to do to downshift right now? I need to raise the engine. I also need to take the load off of the gear. So if I'm gassing it like this and I let off, it's got pressure. So I'd have to brake the gas and then break that tension. Now it's in first. So you start to see how you can rev up the engine now. And if I wanted to back off, that's letting off. You can see that pressure. Now, if I just let off and hit the button, it'll shift right into the next gear. Watch. Now we're in a second. Now if I want to get back into first, I just have to rev it up. To be in first going this fast. Watch. So there you go. Now that's enough of that for right now. Now you can see how you can start to shift without the clutch just by knowing if I let off, I'm going to have that bind. So the gear shifter is not going to want to come out while it's loaded or it has compression, but it will come out in between. Hear the gears? They'll eventually slow down to the gear you want to be in. Now the transmission has loaded itself. I don't need to grind it like that. I'm just grinding it to show you that as that gear slows down, you'll be able to find which slot to push it in. So you should be able to just kind of cruise along. You can hear that pressure on, pressure off, pressure on, pressure off. If you pop this gear shifter forward with pressure on, it won't come out. If you let off, it won't. It's got to be in between. But if you keep that in between really smooth, you should be able to pop it in and out without any bindage. If you get, tuned into it. So let's pop it out. See? Right back in. So I very rarely use the clutch for anything. If I want to go first, pop. Second, slow down. Into first. Into neutral. Rev it up. You can hear the gear as it's on the gear shifter grinding. So if it's grinding really fast, you need to speed the engine up and the grinding will get slower and you pop it into gear at the right time. It's kind of like a feeler gauge. You kind of sense where it is by how much pressure you're putting on the shifter. Don't slam it because it's just going to grind it. Just feel it out. So watch. See, it was too fast because the engine wasn't fast enough, and I revved it up and it was too fast because the engine was too fast, but right in between it popped into gear. So there's always going to be that free point when you want to let off. It's going to be the same point you're going to use to switch actual gears into the next gear. You're going to find that spot where it comes out, but instead of trying to go back into the same gear, you're just going to shift it in the next gear. In this case, second is up here, so if I get high enough to be in second, now we're in second. If I want to come back down to granny, unload it. Now, all that crunching is just to show you that that's where the gear is. It's why they say, if you can't find them, grind them. But if you're grinding them, you need to listen to what the grinding is. Like, if I go from second too high, see? Too low. Now we're at a stall. So you'd have to put your clutch in and start over again. If you just go around in the parking lot and practice, you'll actually get pretty good at it. So there, you start off. Now we're in neutral. Now if I want to put it in first, I'll rev it up and match that gear up. So just cruise around the parking lot is what I recommend. Just get familiar with using first gear before you start switching all the other gears. Now, the benefit of practicing in a parking lot is you can do this over and over. So let's say you go practice for an hour and you shift this gear shifter, let's say once every minute. You're gonna be like 60 times better at shifting without a clutch, rather than trying to drive down the road 3 or 4 or 5 miles, grab a shift every once in a while and just kind of learn from each shift as it's happening. You're better off going on the parking lot, sticking in first gear, going on and off, and at least just trying to find the release point as a good start. Just get it out of gear. Just kind of feel the shifter and feel the engine. Once you get the hang of it and you can start to pop it in and out of gear and kind of grind them a little bit lightly and feel the teeth and speed the motor up, then you can get out on the road and really start shifting some gears and going through all the gears pretty effortlessly and really matching them up super smooth. And you'll be able to start off using every single gear, upshifting and downshifting. You'll be able to go granny low, high, second low, second high, third low, third high, fourth low, fourth high, fifth low, fifth high, and then you should be able to back down from fifth high to fifth low to fourth high to fourth low to third high to third low to second high to second low to first high to first low and down to neutral without using the clutch at all. And you should always be able to come to any stop sign like this, put it in neutral, and as you're coming up, ride the gear. Listen to it. When it slows down, pop it in. I'll never hit that clutch. So that is a great way to practice, actually. If you really don't know how to get it out of gear or anything like that, let's just make that the very first step. I'll show you a great way to practice. This is actually one of the best ways to really get so at idle. It can only go one speed when you're at idle. So listen to the motor, and you can hear right now it's just chugging along, and you can see we're barely going anywhere. So it's always going to want to go into gear at this speed, like 2 miles an hour, literally. Great way to practice if you don't know how is go ahead and use your clutch. Okay, go like this. Let it out, speed up, toss it out with the clutch, and then just go, try to put it in first. And you saw it was clicking kind of fast, and then as it slowed down, you know, you could feel which spline was going to spline in. That's a great way. So just speed up, pop it out, try to get it right back into gear. So that was like 2 times right there. 3 times I just practiced. Do that and you'll get back. Make another episode. I think that's enough for anybody to go off of on how to shift and get it in and out of gear clutchless. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to ask them in the comments. I usually try to answer all my comments. I know it took me a long time how to figure out how to shift without a clutch, but these tips will definitely help you out if you're learning. And like I said, don't be afraid to ask. There's a lot of videos out there, but I really don't know if a lot of people actually know what's happening with the gears. But that's what's happening, and so give it a shot. Let me know if it's going good for you, and if you need any help, definitely ask and I will do my best to answer. Hopefully enjoy the video.